Workspace. We're the town-owned co-working meeting gallery space in the heart of downtown Manchester, Connecticut. And we are here to support entrepreneurs and artists who are also entrepreneurs. We have 7 meeting venues for people who need to host professional events, meetings, workshops, 3 art spaces, a gallery shop, and then we like to do community events, not only to bring people into the gallery, but then to send them off to our neighbors on Main Street and or not, a mile and a half? Yeah. Mile and a half away to Shady Glen. So I just want to share a story that I, like many people who grew up in Manchester, big fan of Shady Glen. I actually lived up the street, which was dangerous. But my biggest memory is after dance recital at the Burton Studio. They were down here as well. From the age of 3, I can't be sure about the 3-year-old because I don't remember, but I do remember standing along the walls, full makeup, after the recital, with my parents and often my grandparents waiting for a seat to celebrate. And my poor parents, I took it from 3 to 18. They had to sit through that many recitals, but they knew they were getting ice cream at the end of it. So thank you for that. And I really don't know the history, so I'm hoping you could tell us how it began 75 years ago, and then we'll get to how are you still around and so popular, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Sounds great. Shady Glen started as a farm.
Why don't we introduce you? Billy and Amy.
Billy, Amy. 46 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In 1934, Frank Rieg, father of John Rieg, they came over from Germany, Stuttgart, and they bought a farm, dairy farm, and John Rieg hated farming. Just couldn't stand it. There's some old articles, if you look in the newspaper, Frank was actually pulling into the farmhouse. The actual dairy is where the red silo is, and that was the headquarters of everything. Anyway, a young kid going to Yukon from Springfield rear-ended the horse and buggy, and it's got a picture of it, and he's all over the place. He was okay, but he didn't care for the automotive part, tractors and stuff. He still stuck with the oxen and everything for the, it was all farmland behind Shady Glen, as it isn't now. But so moving ahead, they split Manchester with I think 4 or 5 dairy farms and their deliveries. There was the Woodbridge farm, the Lynch farm, Keeney, and the Rieg farm. During that time period, you had to homogenize, pasteurize milk. That stopped a lot of the local farmers from producing and doing their routes. So the routes increased. Mrs. Rieg, I'm jumping ahead, but anyway, just remind me of this part, Mrs. Rieg, to say that. So the delivery areas increased. John and Dad, they would use, they'd split it. There was a truck that they used, and they had the horse and buggy still. John used that. That's when he met Bernice at the door. Now, Bernice has an interesting story. She was basically shipped to a relative's house during the Depression in 1929. The boys could work, some of them went into the service, but they couldn't afford to keep her at home, so down south. And she had a chip on her shoulder, which we didn't know about then. But when she came back, she met John at the door, and it was love at first sight. And it was kind of cool because the horse advanced to the next house, and she was in a panic and said, it's taken off. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. He knows what to do. And well, it wasn't too far after that they got married. And then John found his dad on the milking stool, and he had a heart attack and had passed away. That was the 4 o'clock milking, and right before school.
Is this the same day that he met Beatrice?
No, but okay. He was carrying on. They courted for a little bit, maybe a year or so. It wasn't soon after that they got married. And he continued his hatred for farming. But she was a businesswoman. with the drive of what had happened to her earlier in her life. And she became not self-made because it was a combination. Her, Johnny, and her were a team. And so she had a vision, she had a dream. If you hate farming so much, why don't we start with an ice cream parlor? We'll build a very small building, and if a business fails, it'll be a duplex. We'll use the land. So that was the idea. The cows still knew what to do. And they went up to upper state New York. They got a small ice cream machine, a batch freezer, and they started it. Well, it took right off. It worked out well. The building, incidentally, keeping everything in town, Andrew Ansaldi Sr. Built it, and with a handshake, that was it. And didn't collect one penny for over a year. It was Christmas time when he came back, and Mrs. Reed, Bernice, and John thought, oh, here we go, asking for a payment. There was a bottle of wine and a box of chocolate saying, congratulations. Still didn't ask for anything. And then, eventually everything was cleared up. But that's how you did business, and that's how you had the town, becoming family. That was pretty cool, great story. And so, summertime, talking about the marketing and advertising concepts that she had, they used the milk route to give cards out to push their product. And so they were able to reach the whole town because all the farmers, they interacted with each other, they were friendly. So she was able to get to the whole town. Shady Glen was outside of what was considered a commerce area. So she eventually had to, I believe it was said to me that she was the first woman heading the Chamber of Commerce at that time, just for that reason, to promote her business. She also was the head of the DAR, the Mayflower, yeah. So she was actually the underside of Shady Glen was actually a meeting room similar to this, and I would come down in a little suit jacket and serve sandwiches and stuff. So it was kind of, that was what I did.
So speaking of Bernice, I only know her from the name on the mural. When did that mural go up? And do you know any of the history of all the names that are in it?
Yep. Those were all managers of that time period where she got the idea. She had a couple artists from the Cape. That's on canvas. The original, I still have that rolled up. I have the one from the Parkade store. And this one's the second one. It's been reconditioned a few times, but yeah, two girls from the Cape came out and did it. If you remember, the one at the Parkade had evil-looking eyebrows. Everybody. But it was so popular and evil that we didn't change it. And then one day somebody actually started painting it, and I said, let it go. And they changed the eyebrows a little bit because they just looked so devious. But so the first year was a home run. Wintertime came, and we have to do something to subsidize the decline of ice cream in the winter. And plus, people weren't, they didn't have the money to just do this, so she needed a draw. So they said, well, why don't we make some light lunches and sandwiches and see if we can, do that. That's when she set out she wanted to be the ingenuity of it all. It's something different, not just a sandwich, just a grilled cheese. And so that's when she was playing around on an electric grill, and she accidentally noticed some of the cheese. During the wartime, cheese, American cheese was a combination of Colby and cheddar after the day's run. J.R. Kraft figured that one out. He swept up everything, so to speak, and reconstituted, and that was American cheese to this day. He marketed that. That was through the roof. But she noticed that at certain times it was crispy, so she developed that and got it down pat. The University of Connecticut, like all universities, will take care for free whatever department you're in. We went into the agriculture part, and they'll work with you to help benefit a small business. So I've used that situation quite a few times. So she developed the cheese, and then the coleslaw dressing. She was always very interested in how certain things hit the tongue with your sinuses. The same way that we have our batch freezers. There's a reason that we don't have an inline continuous. A lot of our recipes were developed at the university. In Connecticut at that time was tops in New England. Penn State is basically that, but Connecticut's coming back big time. But Connecticut won all the awards, and the staff was very helpful in creating different recipes and stuff like that. So like our chocolate chip and stuff like that are not really chips. You know, it starts as a warm chocolate liqueur, and it shatters when it hits the barrel. That's why it has to be batch freezers. So we have.
What's the difference between a batch freezer and the other one for lay people?
The inline system, like say Jim Orfitelli at Royal, you hit a button, it's computerized, so you can just run vanilla and then hit it over, and you can run, and it's a constant tube. So if you're making confections, something on a stick, or just filling up containers, it's just one thing, one flavor. And then you could add at certain stages to your fruits and your nuts, but it's for mass production. Where the batch freezers is 5 gallons of mix, which in itself is a recipe, and then that would 10 gallons of ice cream.
So this is the freezer to make the ice cream, not to store the ice cream.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a batch freezer, so you're making batches, and
Gotcha.
that's why we were able to do the recipes that we do for the ice cream. And so we have the coleslaw dressing was a sweet and a sour thing that she had. She just, and she developed that. And it's hard to say the recipe because we make it in a big vat, so you couldn't break it down. And it's very laborious too, because it's constituting salts and sugars and stuff like that.
And has the recipe changed over the years? I heard a kerfuffle on Facebook a little while ago.
The recipe changed due to the pandemic. There was a lot of Kraft changed their heavy mayo base because there were certain ingredients that they couldn't get. Of course, we never got the heads up because our application of their mayo is they didn't think that was going to matter. Same with the cheese. One day we got a batch of cheese at night, freezing cold. We always tested it. We pulled a loaf out of the truck and we slice it up in our machines and we try it out, and it went jet black. And I was like, no, don't take it. And then all the bigwigs came out from Schreiber. They're the biggest in the country. They make
biggest of what?
Cheese.
Okay.
And we had a wonderful relationship. They understood what it was that we needed. And suddenly it didn't work. Everybody came out of Boston and they said, honestly, I said, well, this is what we have. This is what we had left over in stock. And so they said, well, we're going to go back to the drawing board. They left some paperwork. Only it was then that I realized that they had moved their whole production out of Wisconsin and they're in Missouri now. And the cows and the acidity, because of the labor force, was so much cheaper. And they had a massive problem with trying to get cheese, all their saucing cheese and stuff weren't working. So they were out. They just couldn't wrap their head around what it was that I needed. So had to be my own doctor. So that was all the publicity with that. That's back and forth with. I was just telling Tom, Wisconsin and the University of Wisconsin at Madison. There was a professor there that he got it. He just wrote a book about all the different applications to cheeses. And I shot over a YouTube video. I was actually getting my teeth cleaned when I saw this magazine. It said Dairy of Field. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, why not? I got back home, I got back to the office, and he responded right away. And he said, I know exactly what you need. I just saw your YouTube video. I said, oh, really? 48 hours later, I got 2 loaves of cheese sent over in a styrofoam container. And he knew exactly what the application was. He asked everything, and I told him as best I could, because Bernice back in the day didn't really understand. They had theories. Oh, you only could buy the cheese from these places in spring because there was grass-fed. It doesn't work in the winter. obviously she probably bought some cheese in the winter and it didn't work because of the difference between Colby and cheddar and the levels. It can't vary 16%. So now our cheese is made from scratch as an American cheese, not leftovers because you couldn't control that. So it's, in that case, being your own doctor and checking into it was what this generation had to do. That was just, so many years, it wasn't broken. When I came I was just a little guy working the dairy. I was the guy that lived in the sink and cleaned the parts. Then you got, then you have to find out why your cheese isn't working. So I evolved.
For people who might be watching this on YouTube later, what is so special about your cheese so that they know why Shady Glen is on quite a few hundred places you need to eat before you die in the United States?
Well, you're just going to have to just eat and die because I can't tell you that.
No, but to describe it, so basically you put cheese on a cheeseburger, but you let it hang off onto the grill.
Correct. Yep.
And it gets crisp.
Yes.
And then you curl it up.
Right.
And if you don't want a cheeseburger or a vegetarian, you can just get a side of crispy cheese.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And the trick is, obviously, we've had all kinds of different types of cheeses and its reactions, but it's not supposed to burn or melt into oil. There's a lot of people that always say, I can do that at home, and, good, I don't. So, but, it's a blessing. We take care of that situation, and that's just the product line. Shady Glen has always had the big three, as we call it. It's the cleanliness, it's the service, and it's the quality of the product. So, we were very lucky in that we're blessed with a unique menu. So we had to, really take care of that aspect. But then from then on, now you need a staff, and that's where Bernice was brilliant. John was Howell Cheney Tech, Pratt Rat, and just if it's broken, you could fix it. Refrigeration. So that's what he did, and she was a business lady, and so it was a great combination. And so when the time came to develop the store, advertising, she was an advertising maniac. She was selling her brand. She was marketing everything. Some of the stuff I get a kick out of. Just one of the, Valentine's Day. That Manchester Herald. They said, "Bring your best girl." That's what it was. It was a cartoon character with a sundae and stuff, and it said, "Come to Shady Glen for a Cupid sundae," and she describes it, and bring your best girl. And I don't think that floats anymore. But but I got a kick out of it. We have all the old pressed pieces and stuff like that.
Do you have stuff in the Historical Society?
Yes, we do. Yes, John and Bernice. Well, Bernice in her golden years was really big on giving back to the community. And taught the generations too how important it is. The customer base has to be supported just outside of coming to our business. In the hospitality business, I'm not speaking for every genre, but for us, and we're fortunate to do so. It's post-pandemic, it's not so easy anymore. There's still, customer retention is not as big of a problem because of our blessing of our menu, but employee retention, training, and just the work ethic and stuff is a little bit more demanding. You have to be more creative than, but it's still inherently kids come in with an empty head, and we enjoy that, to train them and come into the river like I did and just, go down and I get a lot of phone calls from, bosses from Travelers or whatever. You did a great job. And that brings me back to another great story. And in 1949, at the end of a complete year, Curtis and Preston Blake, they founded Friendlies, and they both came in over the cone counter and point blank just called for Bernice. She walked over. They said, we want to buy you out," and she threw them out. And she took it very personal because she was all in. She was passionate and she was fierce about it. she used to put pencils in her fingers and bring me in the office, the big office, and she would snap she was so intense, that you knew, you learned because you knew she was on that side of the fence, and if you want on, and you want to succeed, you pick it, So it was a great story, and it was Preston. He was about 100 when I met him, and he still remembered that story. He was doing
who is Preston?
One of the two brothers that founded Friendly's, and he built the Monticello and Summers or whatever at that time. What a hoot, just a real guy. But he understood that he bought Friendly's back from Hershey, because he didn't like the way it was going, the direction. Just a super cool guy. But he did remember that story, throughout the years, we've had helicopters drop in the field, James Cagney, and stuff like that. So it's been really cool to hear those stories. Paul Newman was always the hole in the wall, shoots up that way. We've had Frankie Valli, sang a song in tour bus and stuff like that. And we've had a lot of sports people, but scheduling and everything. All were UConn basketball games. There was no 84 back then, so that was a cement one way. So we would get swamped. So it was making sure that there was enough staff after the game and before the game. So you had to pay attention. So that's how we all became big UConn fans, because we knew the onslaught was going to happen at any time. And so it's and Gino lives right behind Shady Glen, and he's just a big fan, and well, how can you not be? He helps us get through the winter.
So there was a woman who came in here yesterday. She's actually getting into her car, and I'm like, come in. So her name's Rosemary, and she worked there 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And and she said everything she learned about hospitality, because she's worked in many restaurants, is from Shady Glen. Yep. And she was very excited that you guys
She brought people from Friendly's just to come in and observe our protocol and our training system. And Rosemary's been around forever, that she sleeps and drinks business, and she was very close to my dad. So time doesn't stop for anybody, but I've been there 51 years, and I never worked a day with her. So I never actually worked a day with Mrs. Reed either, so I guess I was fortunate in that respect, because she was pretty intense. There was back in those days, if you didn't conform, you got grabbed by the back of the shirt and booted, and then that was okay, so it's changed a little bit, but all in all, that if it's not broken, we don't want to fix it, but we do have to go. You never want to have a perception of going backwards in business, so you got to go with the new register system, and kids don't know how to count back change now from that system. So, it's kind of fun, how it ages me by saying, I would never say, back in my day, but I have to now, because I've seen so much and it's so different. But.
And how have you, fought off the demands of other changes? You had a second store, and Rosemary's like, oh, Bernice never wanted that. And she's like, they offered to, have one in New York. She's like, nope. And the uniforms are still the same. The menu has added items, but not, a significant aesthetic change at all.
Right. Well, the menu change is because there's always been that push for eating healthy. So we had to offer, the no low-fat turkey and the hams and stuff like that. Just because the family that comes in together, there's always somebody in that group that you don't want them not to eat, or you want them to come in. So we had to offer that aspect, but we like to keep it simple in that respect, because that's what we're noted for. And we could go crazy with it, but if you see our setup, it's very it's fast. And if you have like, we used to have a chef salad, and man, that was just like 8 cheeseburgers, French fries, chef salad. It's like, okay, that takes a whole person away, to bang that out. So it is, you have to be careful what you want to offer or what you can offer. That's so we have like other aspects of trying. In the 70s, there was the inflation of the 80s and 70s was an issue. So you have to compensate. So we started breakfast at that store. The Parkade always had breakfast because they had the businesses up on top. So we studied them for a while, and then we did it. And then wholesaling our ice cream, was just an idea. Let's see if it takes off. So we visited Molly, we sat down, and we did the samples and stuff, and we worked out something like that. And then we grew it. So it's it helps educate the next generation. I got 2 younger kids that are making the ice cream and stuff like that, and they had to get certified and understand the machines and keep them running. And it's a hoop to see. We've had some longevity people that were there. Our dishwasher of nearly 40 years just passed away last week, and and his sister was our cook. And she's still alive, and my dad was there for 50-something years, and with other dishwashers, 30 years. I have managers that have been here for 30 years, so I have a lot of my ice cream maker was there forever, and he showed up first thing in the morning. He was a Marine, but he just got out, and then he worked, met his wife upstairs. We've had a lot of people meet their spouses, and my brother, my dad. All my managers that are married, and a bunch more. Must be something in a cheese.
So how did you 2 meet?
Her best friend was already working at Shady Glen, and they, on payday, back in those days, you got paid in cash, a little envelope with your little ticket and everything. And they came in, and you had to square up your food bill for the week, and not like it is nowadays. That you have to pay for their food, and I saw her, and she was all dialed up. And so the next day, I just asked her girlfriend. I said, "Who was that?" She goes, "That's the one you're going to marry." We had a date, and we did a foursome thing at the beach and stuff like that. And that was in '77, and then. 78, I started the college thing, got married in 79, here we are. So that's my story.
Do we have any, first of all, I just want to say the fact that the different businesses and even competing businesses supporting each other, I mean, that's so impressive and
just in our
nostalgic.
Line, ice cream to ice cream shop. I mean, we have, Royal Ice Cream is just stellar, and Jim is fantastic, and we have a relationship. We borrow all kinds of things back and forth, and that's important. We just phone call, sure, drop it off. He's helped me out, and that's been that way forever. And that's, back in the day, mix used to come in from Gaida in a big tanker, and tankers they're not even legal anymore, so they come in giant totes. That industry was something that Jim had to use right away, and so he helped us through that transition. So, everything is, as you modernize, you try to incorporate, and you make a phone call to, another townie, and I think that's the way it should be, because I would do it for, anybody else.
That's what we're trying to create here in the co-working space, even though people are different in industries, but sharing your own expertise, learning, building, a cohort of,
Right.
colleagues.
Right, yeah.
Excellent. Do we have any questions? Tim?
Whatever became of the big beef cheeseburger?
Red Robin and all those commercials, right before the pandemic, it was always taking these big, thicker. Everybody jumped on that, and so that was selling everybody. And at the same time, McDonald's, was getting flack for the little thin burger. It was believed by Bernice that if you had a 90-10 grind, it was more quality. I didn't believe in that, but we also had to be careful that we didn't have a transfer of fat in the cheese and fat that ran off when it was cheese time. So we have a proprietary grind that's still an 80-20, but between the chuck and all that sort of stuff. And then I was able to raise up the ountage. So the big beef was a 1/4 pounder, but that's our hamburger now. And everything else is a 6 ounce. Okay. So it's even bigger than the bigger, but that's another thing of the industry. Right. Yeah. And, so, a lot of, everything started always, modestly. And, you have to recognize when it's time to make a change for what the public wants. but still having our own identity with it. So in that particular case, it wasn't just ordering the same burger and making it bigger. There's the whole business side too, but 30% food costs. Groceries are like crazy, trying to make, the profitability in restaurants, are not, especially in non-alcohol, so you have to watch things, but yeah, that's that.
Just to follow up,
Yep.
my daughter worked there, fabulous training. And in her day, she had to handwrite the slips and do the math, which she's
Yeah.
a genius at math, so she had to figure out the tax.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and you had to give back the
Tax
change.
chart.
Yep.
And it didn't tell you on the computer how much change to
Right.
give back. When did you make the change to a computerized register and that sort of
When
thing?
the whole industry and your National Cash Register wasn't making those anymore, that was, the industry dictated to us what you were going to do. But to what degree? Do you want credit cards? The POS systems can, spit out percentages of a particular item even. We try to keep it as simple as possible, but yeah, you're right. When I met her, everything was down, and then
Had
you
to add it.
gave the
Yeah.
slip to the
Tax chart.
customer. The customer was not going to add that up, and you had your tax chart, and as tax, 6.35 or whatever. All the girls cut it out, as you know, and that was more hectic. That was why there was a need to have what we call a floater. A lot of boys would run around making sodas for the waitress because she was busy adding slips like crazy. Now the register does it for you, so you have a slip, and then you have the final bill, and it does the work for you in that respect. But still, you got to know.
2005 or somewhere. in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But we still
Yeah.
do, we still handwrite it on the slips though.
To the grill.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Still the old-fashioned
we just
way.
try not to get too automated,
We're
with
trying.
things. Hello, Shady Glen, may I help you? Yeah, the pandemic really made things lonely. It was different because, like Molly was saying earlier, the process. We became a takeout, and it was tough. There was, I had to do picnic tables. And everybody likes the picnic
keeping them
table, so
now
we're keeping them.
because
Yeah,
it worked.
we might as well.
So-
We have the field, might as well use it. So we just just trying to survive. Just trying to think. Just trying to keep the jobs going. That's the responsibility. Blood can't be thicker than business when you're in a family business. You have a responsibility once you get a business up and running to a level where there's livelihoods at stake. There's health insurance for their families. And so you have to watch things. So you can't be too conservative, but you certainly got to watch the radical ideas that you might want to do. And the pandemic really rearranged all that. From people not coming back to work. And not always looking over your shoulder because some items in the trucks, you couldn't get them. It took me 23 weeks to get another grill. It was just ridiculous. Dishes, that was paper goods. I had sizes of cups that I was just thankful to have, let alone, it wasn't a full
Nothing
milkshake. I
matched.
had to give 2 cups out for a full milkshake. I just couldn't get the cups. So, it was very anxious. Yeah. So.
Chris, did you have a question?
I'm curious, as far as I've ever experienced, one of the kind of the unique things about Shady Glen has been the look and feel of the restaurant, the diners counter seating, the uniforms of the wait staff, kind of being that throwback. But with a history of 75 years, that wasn't a throwback retro look at some point.
No.
At some point, that was just how wait staff looked in restaurants in general. At what
Mhm.
point did it kind of sink in, like, hey, wait a minute, this is something we're going to keep? You're talking about keeping up with the times,
Yeah.
to
Right.
somewhat adapt with the industry,
Yeah.
but then you've made a deliberate choice to not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's become kind of a part of the brand,
Right.
part of the trademark.
We're all
Everything has to be
actors.
made now.
Yeah.
Handmade.
Yeah.
There's
Our
no
uniforms.
place
Yeah.
we can go for those uniforms.
But was
They
there-
have to be
Marlo
customized.
isn't here anymore.
Mid
There just
50s.
is nothing.
So mid-50s,
Mid-50s, we really embraced it.
Phase.
Yeah. My dad started, he had just a t-shirt on the grill, I got a picture of it, and just a white t-shirt with the cigarettes rolled up.
Could never.
You know,
Yes, you do.
and then after that, they'd shoot down to DC's. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that was, what you did, And Shady Glen didn't have many, people have choices now, just in this area, and you have to respect that too. So you can't just hang on your laurels of the past generations or what you've done, because people's pocketbooks and what you offer has got to be, you got to keep the standards up, because it was only Vic's Pizza, Willie's Steakhouse, DC's, Shady Glen. That's all there was. So everybody was unique in that too. So
Good, shut up.
yeah, don't age me. I just yes, I am on Medicare, but next month. And then I'm getting a new hip, so
Some things do change.
Yes.
Yes.
So many people in this room and around town have been going to Shady Glen for generations. I remember going there as a child.
I still remember you.
Still going. What challenges do you see, ahead of you to ensure that future generations can enjoy what we've all enjoyed?
You have to be more creative on just what you said. You have to explain to them the history. Right now, I've had a lot of people, moms and dads, send their kids to us, and the interview process is a little bit different. And so, I'm providing a job, but you can just sense that they want to be part of that feel-good area of, and you can tell some don't, they moved into Manchester, they don't know it, and they don't want to work, and well, that's, if I hire them, I'm a lousy interviewer. I try to do the very best I can, because yes, there's 16-year-olds and they say, well, no, we don't go on vacation in the summer. Well, I know that's wrong. I'm going to get told I didn't know my parents were going to go away. I have to go with them. But that's all part of it. It's, if Jimmy's going to play baseball for that season, then Roger during basketball is going to work for him. And, that's how you do it. We're open 7 days a week. Some restaurants would prefer not to have to, put themselves through scheduling. So they just, we're closed on that day. But in my understanding, that your prime costs are always going to be, you're going to pay that electricity, that refrigeration is going to be going that day, so you might as well be open, and it's an opportunity for employment and everything. So 7 days, it just makes sense for us. It's a little difficult to get renovations done, but I sneak it in. I got some booths that we're redoing, so I got to figure out a time on that one. But everything always happens in the summer, and that's a no-no, but we'll see what goes,
Amy, anything you want to share from your perspective?
I'm not sure. Any questions? Yes.
This is my husband and I was curious, because we love Shady Glen.
Okay.
Credit cards, you don't take them.
The question is about taking cash only.
We're trying to keep it that way. I know it's
Right.
difficult. Yeah.
Owning a business.
The cone counter. You get so many people that come in for 3 ice cream cones, and then they whip out a card. When that cone counter is jamming, and that process takes so much, you back up. You can't give them the service that you want to. That's one reason. There's this credit card service charge at the end of the
I
month.
would think it's so easy to tap and pay now. It's
So,
just like
right,
lines.
and
And
then
that
we
has
have
to, yes.
to pay for that service,
But,
where the ATM, I make money. So we just refer to them to go over there. I
But
remember.
not to say we wouldn't change it at some
I just
point.
Right,
We're trying
yeah.
Does that
to.
hurt your business at all?
Right.
or-
They warn you on social media, platforms, and they only take cash. But for us, we're 75 years and about 4 generations. People are kind of trained for that. We do get a lot of out-of-staters, especially right now during graduation time for the colleges, and and we'll take a check. We're
That's
not, but
impressive. I was gonna
Yes.
say, as long as your ATM's not
Yes.
broken.
right,
Yes.
right, and
Yes, you have to
you know.
make sure that's filled.
But from, working in the black as opposed to having to pay out for the credit card situation. And then even that poses a lot of fraudulent problems. So, so far, I'm just holding off. Eventually, I don't think I'll have a choice. Nobody carries, everybody's plastic. Even George up the road from Georgina's, when he found out that, he put a $25 minimum because people were just buying one little thing and whipping out the card in the process. He goes, I'm paying more in the service charge than the drink. I'm not really making out. I got to account for that. To have an ATM on site, that was my dad's doing. We were at a food show and there was a booth there, and he was like, I wonder if we could get any traffic in that. And the traffic on that ATM machine is just ridiculous. So it made sense. So far, so good. And that's old school, right? It's 50s, no credit cards.
And you mentioned social media. Do you have someone specifically working on that, or do you just find a lot of people tag you?
Yeah, we're tagged. In the restaurant hospitality, a lot of people will use it to promote and market. I prefer to go other ways with it, only because of the negativity. People have too much time on their hands. And other restaurants, I hate to say it, pay people to do a bad review. And that's happened, and I've been a victim of that. There's not one time that I wouldn't make a situation right to a customer once they were in the store, but they'd rather leave, complain, and then have people. I've had one person said something about whipped cream or something, and I'm never going back there again either. And then they're from Florida. I'm like, okay. So yeah, it's. I'm as passionate about the business as Bernice is. I put my whole life into it. So out of 1,000 yays, you get that one person. That's the one you go to bed on. I can't sleep on it. It's just like, and I don't want to play into their complaints. I have a lot of waitresses that are just wired like squirrels on crack, and they just start arguing with these people, and that's what they wanted. They wanted the charge, and I just say, hey, listen, if they are complaining, you must be doing something right, because it's just not worth chasing down those people, And I put it out there. Our accolades were built on being, conscientious. Our efforts, consistency. That's the key to give somebody good service on the 1st of the month and the 30th of the month. That's the goal, to be in such a routine that everybody just, and then you develop customer relationships and stuff. I've seen them, and pass away, and it's, that part's gratifying. If I got a compliment in the 70s, send me through the stratosphere. Now I get a compliment now, and it's not half as moving, because you go home and you hear about, somebody stopped you I'm at the market or at the grocery store, and did you change this? Did you change that? It's never have a great day. I love your place. It's always a question on a negative side. I got over that, but when it first started, it was terrible. It's just like you get suspect of everybody. You walk in, I found myself walking into the office and I see people with my head down. It's like, they're coming near me. It's not going to be good. When it wasn't that at all. They want you to contribute to a golf tournament or something. Fine, but yeah, it's tough out there. Along with it came with the competition of other restaurants and expectations. Money doesn't fall off the trees, and and people just use that platform. It's like, do you really trust when you buy something on Amazon and you look what people say, it doesn't fit this good in this, you're like, I gotta try it for myself, because I don't trust the reviews. So it's as long as you know that you're trying your best, that's all you can do. Sun rises and sets every day.
Excellent. And one last question for, I think Deb might want to know when your grape nuts ice cream will be. I know it's seasonal.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not seasonal.
No.
Excellent.
Yep. It's one of our most popular flavors. I'll be there. I'll probably be making it. But yeah.
And I do want to give a plug for your minestrone soup. My father ordered it once. I'm like, why are you going to Shady Glen and ordering soup? And now I get it all the time.
Yeah, we had Heinz made a beef stew that was outrageous, and we sold a ton of it. But then Heinz stopped it. It was too expensive for them to produce it. It wasn't worth it. And so we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? If you remember, Kathy Johns had a hodgepodge. And so we were like, let's go back to the drawing board and see what we can do. So we had to look for a minestrone base that was, our minestrone base comes from San Francisco. And So it's a legume product, and it's outrageous. Now it's not a soup; it's a base, and then from there we make the soup. So that was just something that we had just took right off. We're very fortunate with that. But everything's like, you're doing little R&D. And see how it goes. Sometimes a salesperson will come in and say, you want to market this for a little bit and try it out. I'll know right away if it's something but we'll put a little table tent up and just see if it takes off. And we've had a lot of those things work. Coconut ice cream was a couple of restaurants that we supplied to, and then everybody loved it, so we keep that going. But sugar-free ice cream, no, we're definitely a fattening store. That's what it is. Our French fries come from out west because there's very low water content, so they stay crispy that way. If you get them from Maine, there's just a higher water content, so anything packed to go, they get steamed to a mashed potato. Little things like that. People don't, I think, understand that. Our French fries are outrageously expensive, but to get that out here, you're paying more in just diesel and delivery nowadays.
Yeah.
So you have to be, if you can source things from close by, great, but there's just certain things in certain areas that you just have to, you get them from Europe or whatever, you're going to pay for it. So.
Wow. Well, I have to say, again, as someone who grew up here in Manchester, a little fangirling over you, but it's very exciting, and thank you for the consistency and the quality, and I think that has been common among the businesses, the small businesses that we've had here, is talk about the relationship with the community and the integrity behind your business. So thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. You can
Thank you. Pleasure.
You can check out this video and others on Workspace's YouTube page, and just please enjoy the art while you're here, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.